Hello and welcome to Learning Target 3.7. This is going to be all about how a cell divides. Specifically, we're looking at mitosis and cancer. You have two learning targets here. One to be able to explain how a cell actually divides, what this process is all about. This process is called mitosis. And the second thing you need to do is be able to explain how cancer is caused and what are some of the outcomes of cancer, what happens when a cell becomes cancerous. Let's begin. So the first question I want us to look at here, and there's going to be a series of questions that I'm asking throughout this presentation, is why do cells even need to divide, right? Why don't we see gigantic cells walking around the streets of New York City? Well, there's actually a really good reason for this, and that is because one cell, a unicellular organism, it's not efficient for it to be able to get a really big size. And that's because if a cell is huge, it's not going to be able to transport nutrients and get rid of waste fast enough throughout its cytoplasm and through its other organelles. So this is the main reason, or one of the reasons, why a cell divides. After it gets a certain size, it doesn't become as efficient as it could be when it's a smaller size, and a signal is triggered causing that cell to divide. Cells also divide for two main reasons that you need to be familiar with. The first one is when we grow. Many of you are still growing, and your cells are dividing to help you grow. And also when we get hurt. Everyone probably at some point in their life has gotten a cut. Well, thankfully, your cells divide, and you make new cells to heal that wound. It's a pretty nasty gash there, by the way. So how do cells actually do this? Well, cells do a process called mitosis. But before mitosis happens, there's a number of things that need to occur. And we're going to get into that. What you need to know about mitosis at this point is that mitosis is a series of steps during which chromosomes, which are these things that you see here, these are chromosomes, they replicate, and then eventually it ends up with the cell splitting in half. So let's take a little closer look at this entire process here of cell division and break it down step by step. The first thing you need to understand is, well, what the heck is a chromosome, right? Well, a chromosome is a coiled strand of DNA, or genetic material, that you find inside the nucleus of a cell. And for example, as humans, we have 46 chromosomes, or 46 coiled strands of genetic material inside every single one of our cells, all non-sex cells. So all of our cells, except sperm if you're a male and egg if you're a female, have 46 chromosomes. We'll talk about the sperm and egg in another learning target. But chromosomes are inside of the nucleus, and chromosomes are your DNA, essentially. Then DNA replicates as a part of this cell division process. DNA replication, or chromosome replication, you need to know about this. It occurs when each cell makes an exact copy of itself. So for example, if you have a red and a blue chromosome, these are two different chromosomes in this particular nucleus. During DNA replication, they double, and now you have two copies of each chromosome for a total of 4 chromosomes. Now, one thing you need to know about chromosomes is that each organism has a different number of chromosomes inside of a nucleus. Humans, we have 46 chromosomes inside of our nucleus, but fish might have 8, carrots might have 46, 47, 46 chromosomes. I'm not sure, I'm just making these numbers up. But I do know that for sure humans have 46 chromosomes. And DNA replication is when those chromosomes get doubled. And we'll see why that's important in the next slide. So why do we need to do DNA replication? Well, the whole purpose of cell division and mitosis is to make exact copies of what you start with. Think about it, right? If you have a cut in your skin and you want to replace a missing skin cell, it'd be nice if you get that exact same skin cell back, right? A skin cell that does the same thing that your other skin cell did. And that's basically what happens. But the way that occurs is that your DNA first needs to replicate, or your chromosomes need to double. So this first cell is considered a parent cell, the one that's going to create these 2 daughter cells at the end. But in order for you to have an exact copy, you replicate the DNA, or copy the DNA. So here we have 2 chromosomes, the DNA is replicated, and now we have 4 chromosomes. Then we go through this process of mitosis, which we'll break down in another slide. And once the cell is done dividing, we now have 2 cells, which are called daughter cells. Why they're called daughter cells and not son cells, I'm not sure. It's just something that science does. And each of those two cells have 2 chromosomes, or each of those 1 cell has 2 chromosomes. And that makes sense because these 2 cells have the exact same number of chromosomes as we started with. And how was that possible? Well, it's because we doubled the number of chromosomes to 4. 4 chromosomes in one cell, and you divide that cell in half, the chromosome number also gets divided in half, and you end up with 2 chromosomes in each cell. Now, this DNA replication process ensures that these 2 cells are genetically identical to the original cell. That means they have the exact same DNA, or sometimes we call them clones of one another. Now again, what is the end result of mitosis here in humans? Well, the end of mitosis results in 2 genetically identical daughter cells, which are clones of the original parent cell. That means that these 2 cells lack genetic variation. They aren't different from one another. They're exactly the same. So this cell is the same as these 2 cells because the DNA replication process ensures that. The DNA is copied exactly. Now sometimes when cells are dividing, they don't divide in the right way. And in fact, sometimes they divide out of control. And this can lead to something called cancer, or what I like to call mitosis gone wrong. You can see that there's some obvious differences between a normal cell and a cancerous cell. And the first one that you see is the shape, right? And the size of the cytoplasm, the number of nuclei that you might see, a different type of density or coloration inside the nucleus. And we're going to talk about in the next few slides how cancer can occur and what are some of the ways that we can treat cancer in today's day and age. Cancer essentially is caused by a mutation in your DNA, or your friend's DNA, or your parents' DNA. Cancer is something that I'm sure that we all know someone directly, or a friend of a friend that has been afflicted by this disease. Thankfully, there's been some amazing progress in trying to treat certain kinds of cancer, but not all types of cancer are curable. Regardless of that, cancer itself is caused by a mutation. And what you need to know about a mutation is any change in the DNA. That's just highlighted here in this particular chromosome, which you remember is a coiled strand of DNA. And if you look closely at DNA, you may know that DNA is made up of 4 letters, A, T, G, and C. Now, if you look at this strand of DNA, which you know is a double helix, hopefully you remember that, you can see that this is the original strand of DNA, right? And for some reason, there is now a change, right? There was a mutation that was caused. We'll talk about what caused mutations in the next slide. But this letter here was changed to this, from a G to an A, and this letter was changed from a T to a G. And this small little change, this mutation, can actually have significant consequences on the processes that occur inside this cell. And sometimes these processes can lead to cancer. One of the unfortunate things about mutations is, yes, they are caused by some environmental factors, which we'll talk about in a second, but for the most part, these mutations occur randomly. So what is it that causes these mutations or changes in the DNA? Well, a lot of changes in mutations can be caused by the environment. One of those things is UV light. For example, the sun. The sun's rays have a form of radiation called UV radiation, or ultraviolet radiation. We know that people that have lighter skin, and even people actually with darker skin, can have negative effects or end up with skin cancer because their skin cells get mutated from being out too long in the sun, and the DNA is damaged as their cells can cause skin cancer, for example. Radiation, another example of something that can cause a mutation. For example, X-ray radiation. You've probably all been to the dentist before, and when they come to the dentist, they put that heavy lead chest plate on you, right? That lead actually blocks the X-rays from impacting your cells inside your internal organs and prevents them from causing a mutation. Other things that can cause mutations are toxic chemicals in the environment. And all these things can lead to mutations, which in turn can sometimes lead to cancer. So here's a tumor. Cancer is a cancerous cell. Cancer cells grow very rapidly. They grow out of control. It's mitosis gone wrong. Essentially, they grow so large they start invading other normal cells. And there's 2 types of tumors. One type of tumor, less harmful, is called a benign tumor. That's this word here. And the other form of cancer is a malignant tumor, which is much more dangerous because these type of tumors can spread throughout your body. If you get cancer, there are a variety of treatments available. It depends on what type of cancer you have, about how effective the different treatments that are available can end up ultimately curing and extending your life, perhaps. The three main types of cancer treatment are radiation therapy, where you're actually being dosed with radiation, and you're saying, well, wait a second, you just told me that radiation can cause mutations, which can then lead to cancer. Well, it's actually been found also that in some instances, radiation can destroy cancer cells by impacting the DNA in those cancer cells. And this machine here is actually a radiation machine, and what it does is it focuses a very precise beam of radiation on the spot of your body where your cancer is located, trying to minimize the impact that it has on the cells around that. Another form of treatment for cancer is sometimes surgery. It's usually one of the first options that cancer patients have, is to see if they can remove as much of the tumor as possible. Then that's followed with radiation, and also something called chemotherapy, which is a drug, an infusion usually, that causes and targets cells that rapidly divide. And that's actually one of the reasons why a lot of cancer patients that receive chemotherapy treatment lose their hair, because the chemotherapy drug itself targets cells that are undergoing rapid mitosis and cell division. And some of the cells in our bodies that actually do go under rapid cell growth are your hair follicles and your hair cells, and that's why people's hair grows out, because those cells are damaged by chemotherapy. But also, hopefully, they're targeting those dangerous mutated cancerous cells that are growing rapidly. There's also a new form of treatment that's been making a lot of noise recently in the cancer therapy realm, and that's something called immunotherapy. And it's a really exciting field. It's actually where you're able training your own immune system, your own body, to actually target cancer cells by giving yourself a vaccination. It's almost like immunity that we'll learn about in another unit. So that's how mitosis, that's how cells divide, and that's also what happens when cell divide go wrong. You should go back and look at this slideshow on your own time, and also go through all of the different animations, the activities that I did for you in the assignment. And when you're ready, let me know. We'll have you take the verbal quiz and move on to the test. So that's learning target 3.7, and by the way, that's the last learning target in unit 3. When you're done with this one, you'll move on to our next unit. All right, good luck.